Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Vox Jed Fight About It. Today is episode 59, and Voxel, have you ever played the NES game Dudes with Attitude?
Oh boy, have I. I love Dudes with Attitudes. It's one of my favorite puzzle games on the console. It's amazing. It's short, but it's a nice little romp. What about it?
Oh man, I got a 1801 like little handheld bullshit thing that had it. And of course I know that you know about Dudes with Attitude because you're the one who told me to play it. But oh man, I picked up a little emulator handheld, a really cheap one off of Amazon, and holy fuck, games pre the N64 are really good, and nobody really talks about it these days. Like, they're so easy, and they're so, well, not maybe not nobody, but like nobody in the modern space, I mean, other than like...
I have been, I don't know what to tell you. You have been friends with me for 4 years, and the fact that, like, the fact that you're just now, like, oh, dude, turns out games made before 2000 are pretty fucking good. When I'm, like, the like, old video games guy. And
of course, yeah.
Just because, like, every time I've ever tried to, like, well, the thing is, very early into our friendship, I tried to swing that direction a little bit. And then you were like, because I was like, oh man, I'm playing this game from this era about this thing. And then you were like, yeah, cool, I'm playing Dark Souls. That's what I'm into right now. I'm into fucking Dark Souls. And that was when I established in my head that, like, okay, Jed just is not into old video games at all. So this is just not a thing to talk to Jed about ever. And so I just kind of, like, filed it away in my brain as a fact about you of just, like, Jed has no interest in playing anything 2D, let alone something from, like, over a decade ago.
Well, because, like, the thing that I ran into was that emulation on the PC it's always just been more work than it's worth. Because it's one of those things I find where it's like, I'm not going to play an NES game for very long. Odds are, I'm going to play an NES game, a couple of levels of it, maybe I'll beat it, but overall, it's not that long. And the setup for setting up an emulator is so much more. But then, once I got this Game Dingus thing, and it was just, here's like a billion different games. Just play whatever the fuck you want. And just being able to play whatever is really good. And it swayed me fully to your side, man. I'm on the emulation Game Dingus side of the world now, and it's a good place to be.
It's a really good place to be, actually. It's phenomenal. It costs you no money. It's very cheap. You have just about every game that anybody would... You ask anybody on the street what is the best video game you've ever played, odds are you'll have it on that system if you've got everything GameCube and before. You're pretty much set.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, you will have free and available access to it, and it's very nice in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But after getting the Game Dingus and playing on it enough, which is this, like, it's genuinely an off-brand, like, it looks like it might be inspired by the original Game Boy, but it's got, like, a big ass button in the center that looks like a soccer ball, and all the buttons make a nice little rattle. It's great. But... I can't use it anymore. Its save states are busted, and it's a pain in the ass to use. So I ended up...
That's what I was trying to tell you when you bought it. That's like, this thing is gonna, like, fall apart in your fucking hands. But that's alright.
That's what I knew about it, was, like, it was genuinely just like, do I like this enough to care to put any extra money into it? And I was going to just refund it, but apparently, like, my sister wants it, because she just wants something to, like, play on the, like, while waiting for someone or something like that. I guess if she wants it, she can have it. But I ended up picking up, upon your recommendation, a Retroid Pocket Flip 2.
Well, no, give yourself a little bit of credit. You found it on your own. I just, like... Yeah. Because you asked me the other day, and you were, like, very, very putting me on the spot with, like, hey, I am looking into this, unintentionally, of course. I'm looking into this in terms of, like, retro emulation handhelds. What do you know about it? Like, do you have any suggestions? And then I had a lot of suggestions, and we spent, like, 20 minutes looking at number one suggestion, and then, like, after that, I was just blanked for some reason. And I went back and I did some research later, after the fact, to go dig some up, and I rediscovered the Retroid Pocket, And in that time, you came back to me the next day and was like, I think I'm interested in the Retroid Pocket. And I was like, that's good. That's awesome. The Retroid Pocket's actually one that I hear a lot of really good things about. So I'm interested to see how that works out for you.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I ordered it through like their website. However, their shipping details are like very clearly just some like random Chinese importer. So I'm concerned about how long it will take. But
it'll take a while, sure, but like the thing is, these are like very niche, like enthusiast products that we're getting into here, and so it's like it is just like a cost of the thing of just that's why I don't own one of just like spend $200 and wait a month and a half for it to show up at my door. I guess I could do that, but I don't really wanna.
Yippee.
You know, it doesn't really push it any higher on my priorities list. That's for sure.
Yeah. And like, don't get me wrong, you actually set up your Steam Deck to do what I wanted from it.
Oh, yeah,
just,
I've been using my Steam Deck for that in the meantime. The problem with the Steam Deck is that the Steam Deck is kind of big to be like on your desk at all times realistic. And within arm's reach. So like, and it's kind of weighty. So if you have to lean to grab it, you're gonna be like, it's gonna be like picking up like a 2-pound to 5-pound animal. Where it's like, it's this thing is kind of unwieldy if you grab it in the middle, and then you pull it up, and you're gonna have to pull it, like it's gonna be a thing for like a second or two. It won't take long, but it does feel like a process to get into the game, rather than just like, I pick up the little, like only a little bit bigger than like an index card thing on my desk, and then I hit the power button on it, and then I press A, and I'm playing a game. And then there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what really appealed to me about it was like, man, I fidget with shit on my desk 24/7. Like, it's become a joke on the podcast with how often I'll like fumble shit on my desk. But I realized that, oh my god, that's all I need. I just need to like have a machine that I can play Tetris on in like loading screens and shit.
Oh yeah, dude, that's how I got into Tetris really big, was because I just started playing Tetris as like I'm not doing anything right now. This is what I have to keep my hands busy. I guess I'll play some Tetris, and then I just play Tetris, and then you get like 20 minutes into a round of Tetris, and suddenly the thing you were waiting for was over 10 minutes ago, but you're not done yet, you know? And it becomes more intriguing than the thing itself. And that's super interesting. But no, I'm glad you found a solution to your desk fidgeting. I had also heard that you had mentioned that you got another very distinct benefit from owning this thing that might be really good for your mentals. And I don't know if you wanted to really like get into that on the show, but like you had mentioned last night that like, cause you had noticed like I was scrolling, and then you were like, oh shit, this is keeping me off social media. I don't gotta be on Twitter all the time if I'm playing Mega Man, you know?
Cause that's what happened was I opened up my phone and autopiloted over to TikTok, and then I went, why am I on TikTok? I could be playing Super Metroid right now. And then I picked up Super Metroid and started playing it, and I was like, oh wow. Wait a minute, this is a thing that people want to do is not be on social media more often. And like, I don't have an issue with social media, not to the degree that other people do, just because I've curated my like feed to be so heavily like animals and shit like that. However, it still is nice to not be on TikTok very often. I don't know. It's nice for it to just be an app on my phone that I look at occasionally. But like when I'm at my desk, I don't need to be on a social media. You know, I'm talking with my friends. I'm connecting with people. There's no reason to waste my time on TikTok, you know? Because that's really all I find TikTok to be, is just a time waster, you know?
This feels really strange as someone who's just old enough to have watched the birth of social media, and the birth of social media being to be social and interact with people more often in your circles.
Oh yeah.
And how it's become like, dude, no, I don't want to be on social media scrolling. I want to be interacting with the people in my circle. That's like, it's become such an inefficient way to do the thing it was initially designed to do, that like it's just completely become inert when it comes to that.
From it.
When I want to hear from my friends, I get a hold of them. I feel like a boomer, because it's like I don't even look at people's tweets anymore, really. I just kind of like, I see them when I see them, but generally if I want to check in on how somebody's doing, I'll just like go to their DMs and go and shoot them like a, hey, how are you? It's been a minute, you know, and actually like inquire. And I'm finding a lot more of that as somebody who like as somebody who coming up was like, man, I don't really like talking to people all that much. I kind of just like being able to Google the answers to things and have them instead of having to like learn them in a one-on-one setting with somebody. I much prefer reading how somebody's doing on my feed than talking to them, is how I used to be a long time ago. And now I've sort of like evolved it, like in the past, like I guess it's like I'm not a fucking teenager anymore, probably. But it became like such a just like a dude, I would love to have a human being that knows what they're talking about sitting in front of me so I can ask this weirdly specific question and not have to search around an hour for the information. I literally all I would have to do is ask, and the person who knows it can present it to me. Whereas like Google is having a hard time parsing what I'm asking, or like Reddit is like Redditors are covering every answer but mine. Yeah, or every question but the like a hyper specific thing that I need an answer to. Or even if they are, it's like I don't gotta go digging for like a 7 or 8 year old Reddit thread solving my problem if I can just call up my buddy who knows how to fix it. You know?
Exactly.
And learn something from like the people around me as a resource.
It is fucking crazy though that like that is just a big enough generational difference where it's like you were able to see the birth of social media, and when I like by the time that I was
like I had a Facebook account the year it came out when I was like 9.
When I was socially conscious enough to have like a social media of some kind, it was Snapchat. And I think Snapchat was really the birth of the end for social media to some degree. Because Snapchat
I always hated Snapchat.
Like kills connection. Just because it's like all your messages get deleted. Like
and then every social media company ever
bullying almost
copied it because it's what was popular. But it did just signify the beginning of the end because so much spillover from Snapchat into other places happened. And I'd like to say I never had a Snapchat. Not even when I was like in middle school did I have a Snapchat at any point. There is a point where it's like, this is too much. Like why? Like I didn't see the point in it as somebody who like likes to have conversations and gets anxiety occasionally about like, well, okay, I can't remember if they said this or that yesterday. Well, let me scroll up for a second and double check that. Like having that having that information is not useful for anything that's not shady. I'll say that. If you have a Snapchat account, I assure you, 99% of the people who got into Snapchat got into it to either post nude photos of themselves to people in a way where they would disappear immediately, or other sensitive information that's kind of sketch as hell to be sending over Snapchat. You know? Like, that is the only purpose I could possibly conceive for, like, the messages go away as soon as you see them feature. Like, that makes no goddamn sense as a default means of communication to me.
Snapchat is such a bizarre situation just because, like, I remember there was a special kind of community that fostered there, and I was on it because, like, it was one of those, like, my friends all talk on Snapchat because
it was hard to not have one in high school.
SMS thing.
Exactly, it was hard not to have one in high school just because everybody had one, and if you didn't have a Snapchat, it's like, what, you don't have a Snapchat? And it's like, oh, yeah, no, I don't have a fucking Snapchat, dude. You can message me like a normal human being. You know?
Yeah, and, like, I don't know. It's one of those things where I remember having people, like, you could see when people would screenshot or screen record, or it would give you a notification if anybody looked at your story, or you could see if somebody, like, interacted with your story.
Yeah, like, you could see all the interactions and shit, but I want to be fair in that, like, I know that it wasn't exclusively used for that shit. You know how I know that? Because I know people who used it regularly. And do you know how they use Snapchat? They would go out of their way to take the laziest photo ever. Like, the photo part of it would be the inconvenience of sending a message for a long time before they just let you have a DM group chat. Which, by the way, for a social messaging app to not have a text feature, like, at all for several years is weird. That's weird and unusual.
Yeah.
But regardless, before they had that, and even now, to this day, out of tradition, I know a lot of people who just, like, are like, oh, well, I gotta take a picture to send with the message. Yeah, alright, there we go, done. And it's like, well, dude, you could just text. You could just send a text message. And most of the adults that I know have, like, you know, since then reverted it back to, like, yeah, no, we just send each other a text or something. You know, or a Discord message or this or that, and it's over. You know? That's the interaction.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, so I know it's not completely, like, shady and awful. It's just, like I just wanted to clarify that. But it's, like, it just is...
Yeah.
like from a marketing
It
perspective, I
fosters
don't
shady
see
and
how
awful
you.
shit.
Yeah, it definitely fosters the shady and awful through its like feature set, and I think you would have to be like willfully ignorant of it to not know that it's there. That's why like all those years of
Yeah.
like all that like immediate response from Snapchat of like, please don't send your nudes over Snapchat, please don't do that, please don't do that. What else is your app for? What the fuck else did you design this
Yeah.
feature set for? I can't think of a single other use case where this would be useful other than here's a government document you need once. You know, here's like some sensitive
Yeah,
info, like my
really.
credit card number. You can use it this one time, you know, and then it's gone.
It genuinely, I remember it because like there was a lot of like fostering just because like, oh, you're screenshotting or you're saving it, you must be using this against me. Don't screenshot our conversation, man.
Yeah,
You're
there's a lot
clearly
of like,
saving it.
don't
And I went
screenshot
through
that.
that a
That's
lot.
weird. Yeah.
Yeah. Where it's just like my friends are like harassing me and then like they'll like screenshot it and it's like, dude, why like the fact that explicitly that the messages don't get saved and I see when you screenshot our messages makes it significantly more likely to happen because it sends a message at that point where it's like, oh, you're taking a screenshot of something, clearly you're saying something about it, yada yada yada. It's such a thing. And like it would send you a message if you like accidentally screenshot on somebody's story. So then like I'm sure you've accidentally taken a fucking screenshot on your phone. Maybe I'm just clumsy, but I seem to accidentally take a screenshot every 3 seconds on my phone. And that would happen on Snapchat and I would have to like no, I'm not being creepy or anything. I'm just I misclicked, dude. I misclicked. Please.
There was a misinput.
You know.
Calm down.
Misinput.
And it's like,
nobody
dude,
in
what
their
the
right
fuck do I
mind
need
would
the photo
ever-
of you saying okay with like the selfie you took 2 seconds to take of just your shoulder and the pillow behind it from in bed that you chose to respond to me with? Why the hell would I care? Like, why the hell do you care that I have that screenshot and you sent it to me? You know? And it's like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like it's sensitive at all. And so it's like, it really fostered that environment. Yeah. Like, I can get behind that. Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
But-
social media, staying off social media is, like, a huge boon in today's day and age. Like, I cannot express enough how much my day is improved by... I've just gone back to video essays on YouTube. Whenever I get tired of scrolling on my phone, I open YouTube and I find a new one, and I just go, okay, well, I'll listen to this and play a game instead. Or I'll focus up on this and, like, get some work done, or this or that, you know? And it makes my life a whole lot easier than, like... I find that when I hear something on TikTok political, what I'll do is I'll completely shut it out, because what happens is I shut it out and I mark it away, and then I come back to it later via news sources. Like, I go to the news, or I go to, a video essay about the thing by, like, a reputable source that I know of that will, like, cover the thing, you know? In a way that is, like, unbiased and succinct. Because I found that, shocker, guys, as much as it is very quick news, getting your news from a million people that are all screaming down their phones the second they heard is not the best way to hear about anything. Period.
Yeah.
Like, it's just very bad to get, like, okay, well, what happened today? Some golfer, like, tripped on the course and ate shit on video, and that's what we're talking about today? Like, whether it's that or, like, the president has done some major faux pas, I still get the same, like, 30 to 50 voices immediately shouting, like, holy shit, this is the worst thing ever, and holy shit, this is the best thing ever, and holy shit, everything in between. And it's like, dude, I know what my opinion is, but hearing out every possible angle of this and like being overwhelmed with information from like 70 different, like, extremely biased and niche sources is way worse for you than just going to like 2 or 3 different news outlets and getting like just cross-referencing the story to make sure it all is straight and you're not being lied to. But like beyond that,
I
it doesn't
genuinely
matter.
got to the point where, like, and this is kind of shameful, honestly, at least for me, because I pride myself on it.
Oh, God.
Because I got to the point where, like, drama would happen or, like, news would happen, and I couldn't keep up with it, but I could only find it on social media, so I would end up just, like, asking you or, like, one of our other friends, just like, hey, do you know about this? How am I supposed to feel about this? I can't be fucked to think about it, really.
I like to think of myself
it's so nonsensical, honestly, half the time.
most of the stuff just boils down to nothing and is just drama of the day. And I like drama of the day. I'll say it. I'm not a big fan of drama. People shouldn't be creating unnecessary drama in the world. And I don't go out of my way to support drama content creators. People like Turkey Tom can go eat a dick, honestly.
Yeah.
But if I get a video of somebody talking about something passionately, no matter what it is, whether it be drama or otherwise, I'm gonna hear them out. Because, like, I enjoy hearing stories, even if they're like, oh, this guy fucked up real bad today. And so, like, I catch myself watching the ants in the anthill run around, and sometimes I find myself shoveling dirt too, unfortunately, and it's not good, you know? And so it's like I find myself a little more ant-like than I would like while watching from the other side of the glass, you know? And it becomes, like, I get a little too... Not a little too into it. It makes it sound like I'm involving myself in drama, but I'm letting it hold too much of a place in my head, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
for, like,
exactly.
a two-bit
You're
amusement that it
too much
is.
about it.
Yeah, like, it's getting into my day-to-day. It's affecting my mood occasionally of just like, oh, well, that fucking sucks. You know, and it's like, well, why am I genuinely angry? These are strangers. I don't know them, and I don't care. You know, all my friends are still here, and like, everybody I care about are still good people, at least. You know?
Yeah. And, like, that's, I don't know. I got so ashamed about it just because it's like, dude, I can't keep up with this because internet drama is just too much for me. I don't have social media literacy to the point
I don't
where
have a
I
battery
can, like,
for it either.
handle that. So I genuinely just would, like, refer to, like, you or Basil or, like, one of our other friends of just, like, tell me how I'm supposed to feel about this so that I don't have to think too hard about it. And that is where it almost feels like we're just, like, progressing as a society, is just that.
Like, what should
that's
I
how
feel
people are
about
getting
this
their
so that I don't
news.
have to worry about it? Yeah. But, like, honestly, for me, it's like, I always had a genuine opinion on the thing. I just feel like I gave it too much thought, and I don't think you give a lot of this stuff enough thought, really, for, like, a lot of these situations. I feel like we need to land somewhere in the middle where you think about it just a little bit enough to form your own opinion, and then you tuck it away, and it's done. You know? No sitting, like, on it for a few days, none of that shit.
I very rarely, like, blindly follow anything of what
you
guys say.
You form
just,
your
like,
own opinion. It's just like, well, like, what's up, guys? Come on. And then, like, usually you follow suit. But it's like, you know, it's the thing of, like, I'm glad personally that, like, I'm glad personally that we're both in a spot where it's like, yeah, no, I think I am involved in internet bullshit an appropriate amount for somebody, like, at least for me, that for somebody like that, like, gets some level of entertainment value out of watching two people squabble at each other, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I
don't
know.
Is that bad
it's
to
just
say?
Good to
I don't
start
know.
removing yourself.
It's like, it's always people that would be fighting anyway, and I'm never, like, encouraging to the fighting, but it's like, if there's fighting happening, I'm not gonna, like, turn a blind eye. I mean, I'm gonna look, you know? Like, I am human, and that is one of my, like, few, like, vices, is like, oh shit, there is conflict that I'm not in and doesn't affect me at all. I'm just gonna sit over here and, like, kind of mind my business with one ear open, you know? And maybe have a chuckle about it later.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing, but I do feel that, like, you and I, at least, will start there, and we get a little too, like, in our own thought about it sometimes, where it's like, man, these guys are fighting on Twitter about this. Oh, wow, yeah, that, I mean, it makes sense why they're fighting. I'd be fighting, too, if that would happen to me. And then, like, it encourages you to, like, almost put yourself in their position,
take a second.
And then,
it's like hyper-empathy in a way. Bill Burr, I think you know where I'm going based on me saying those two words, had this bit a long time ago about adopting a dog, and how he got this dog from a shelter, and that he's a very, we'll say, spirited person about things. And so, like, Bill Burr is often like, yeah, and, you know, I got this dog, and I'm sitting here with the dog, and we're watching TV, and I'm watching the game, and I'm like, ah, ref, you son of a bitch, you should have, and then I look over, and the dog is just fucking, it was his, and it's like, I find myself being the dog way too often. I find myself being the dog in that situation a little bit too often. I find myself getting caught up in somebody else's meager little troubles that don't even mean that much to them, you know, in terms of investment, I guess is the word. I get way too invested in this stuff for my liking.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think it's good to take a break from social media and to some degree, like, I don't with
Yeah.
our return to Fizzcraft, um, it's been really nice because we've kind of taken a step back from content that we aren't like passionate about to any degree, where it's like, no, I'm not gonna just stream to stream. I would like to do something on stream, and like the same followed suit for the
Like I had a lot
podcast,
of
or at
fun
least the podcast was
terraforming on
first.
Wednesday, and I'm terraforming again today. And I'm terraforming again on Friday. You guys didn't see it. I'll be building a library next week. I forget the show doesn't come out live sometimes. Now that we're back to streaming, sometimes I'll talk as though I'm talking to a live audience, and then there's nobody there, of course, for a few days. But it's like I'm doing these terraforming streams that I've been doing this week, and it's like, dude, I'm really having fun just like doing a mindless task on stream where like the game isn't necessarily the whole focus, and like I could kind of just chit chat back and forth between you and chat and have a time. Like I'm honestly enjoying making slow goings on this base this way. And like while we're talking about Fizzcraft and stuff, that's what I find that I enjoy about Fizz is just like I enjoy building. I enjoy resource gathering in a different way. I like resource gathering as I'm zoned into doing it with a video or music in the background off stream and just getting it done so I can like resource gathering is the thing you do before you do the fun part of the game for me. And so it's like I'll go and I'll get the wood that I need for this project off stream, and then when I come on stream on Monday, nobody's going to have to go watch me chop wood for 2 hours. But I'm making a weird exception for this terraforming because terraforming weirdly feels like part of the build process enough that I kind of want to include it for the sake of like, it's not riveting content, but it's content I'm enjoying making, you know, that like really appeals to me. And I figure that like, if I just keep pushing in that direction, that like, because before, like, not that I wasn't having fun pre-Fizz on stream, like, obviously I was. You can find a million clips of me saying that I'm having a fucking great time on stream. But I always had this air of like, well, yes, I am having fun, but this is a show, and it needs to be interesting for the audience, and I need to be doing what the audience likes to a lot of a degree. And that's what brought me a lot of joy in that time was, like, appealing to audience and finding out what people liked and didn't like about my content and, like, quote-unquote, improving from an audience standpoint. And, like, nowadays I'm to the point where it's like, dude, I care what the audience thinks, but I think if I just keep narrowing in on what I enjoy about doing this and like really get hyper specific into like, yeah, I log on to stream and I don't do a single thing that I don't want to do on stream. And I sit and I think of like, what do I want to do that would also be interesting? Doesn't matter. What do I want to do? You know, and I figure that the people that find that aspect of the game interesting or find what I'm streaming interesting, like in its entirety, will show up at some stage, and I'll probably have more success for it, honestly.
Exactly, because then you don't have to hold yourself to the same like people come here to watch me do this, so I have to do this now. And
that's
that's
people
a
come here
very
to watch
just like
me do what I'm doing, and this is what I'm doing. And like maybe I'll get stuck in a thing where it's like, oh, people want me to build, and I don't want to build this stream, and it's like, well, don't build this stream. Find an audience that won't like throw a hissy fit at you. Not that you guys aren't like, or you guys are awful or anything. I just have this weird preconceived notion that like if I stop doing exactly what I'm doing that's giving me the progress I'm getting today, that I won't get it tomorrow and it will be worse. But it's like, you know, maybe a pivot is good every now and again. Pivoting can be great. But that's what I'm loving about being on the Fizzcraft server so far, is it's given me room to experiment with my content and given me room to really tackle this thing in my own unique way. Granted, I haven't gotten as social as I'd like, but I think that's more to do with the hours that we stream than anything else, so I might make some adjustments there at some stage. I just figured keeping the launch timing would be good, because that's what we committee agreed would be the best time to play the game. And so I figured that would just kind of line up, but either way, maybe there's more to do there. What are you enjoying about Fizzcraft so far, Jed? What do you have to say about Fizz while we're on the subject?
Oh man, I have been having a good time with I had talked about it last time about doing a bunch of mini like little builds, but if you haven't been able to like catch any of our streams, then you wouldn't have known that we actually have been committing to that. And like we're setting up little like each type of villager is going to get their own little building in our area and all that, and it makes it feel like it makes it feel like the area we're going to be building is going to be a very like homey area, and I'm really where I think I only like vanilla Minecraft. I like not that I only like it, because yeah, modded is fun.
Mods
but like I think
oversaturate
vanilla has a very
in
special
a very big way. Which, if
Like,
that's
I
what you're
think the
looking for, is awesome. If more
creativity-
content is what you want, mods are great. But I think nothing
Mhm.
quite matches up to the balance of the vanilla game.
Yeah. Like, I think the limitation of Minecraft is, like, the perfect amount to allow creativity. And, of course, like, they're updating it every day, so, of course, that's, like, me saying this is not gonna mean the same thing in a couple of years, but
Well, I think
they
it will to
every
some
feature
degree,
they add
in that, like, there
Mhm.
is still limitations on what the developers will and will not put in the game, to the point of, like, an artistic perspective, and, like, a gameplay balancing perspective. Like, they have very tight rules, apparently, over there. I don't think we've ever gotten a clean copy of, like, whatever the guidelines are for that. But we've seen bits and pieces of them in the past as to, like, what things are part of the Minecraft, like, quote-unquote, style, like, house style when it comes to, like, art and development. In that, like, I think that, like, because, like, I find myself limited in a lot of the same ways from, like, 2012 to now. It's just a lot of the limitations that felt unintentional and more a consequence of it needs to be a video game that's played seem to have fallen
Mhm.
away in the meantime. Like, a lot of the inconveniences of, like, enchanting has pretty much fixed the problem of replacing tools and, like, pretty much
Pretty much.
perpetually being stuck in, like, a semi-mid-game point where it's like, yeah, I still need to go mining, I still need to do this, I still need to do that. Like, that stuff has been resolved. You don't want to play that part? Go enchant. Oh man,
Yeah.
I keep falling off this big build I'm doing in the sky. Happy Ghast. Get a Happy Ghast or scaffolding. Those are both very good options for that. Like everything, just about everything. I mean, phantoms are a new limitation in that you can't be out for 5 or 6 days, but I wouldn't really consider that a
Well, yeah.
creative limitation. Like, I feel like all the creative limits we have today are just about the same as the ones that we had in, like, beta, except nowadays a lot of the inconvenience of those limitations is resolved, and, like, it's very convenient, but it's still like a walled sandbox, where it's like, this is what you're allowed to, this is what you're able to do with what you have, and what you're able to do with what you have is much more than it seems, and that's, like, the beauty of it, I think. Anyway, sorry, that was kind of long-winded.
Yeah, that's the thing that really makes Minecraft what it is, and why I've been enjoying vanilla so much, is that every build we walk around and see, there's no, like, oh, that's an interesting block, I've never seen that before. It's all impressive because, like, I know every single one of these blocks. I've used every single one of these blocks for probably over 10
Never
years
would have thought to
at
put
this
them in that
point.
combo. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that makes it more enjoyable, at least to me. Because while I do like modded for the reason of, like, it's a different game. Like, let's be honest, modded Minecraft is not the same as vanilla Minecraft. Like,
No, it's very much its own beast in like every pack, because modded Minecraft often revolves around the progression of the video game and expanding that progression to, like, astronomical levels, whether it be through machines in Create, or through, like, going to space in, like, Ad Astra, or, like, different dimensions with, like, magical weapons like the Aether, like, all sorts. Like, most mods are progression mods, and mods that help you get more out of, well, I'm the kind of guy who blows through the end portal in, like, a day and like kills the dragon and then goes and gets netherite, and then I just have everything. And then, like, my game is boring to me now because I don't like the building, or I don't want to build all the time, or, like, I'd like reasons to build more, because that's, like, it's mining, it's crafting. Those are the two aspects. And so it's like,
it's Minecraft.
yeah, and so, like, if you're more into the mining than you are the crafting and need more reason to craft before you mine, that's what mods typically end up being for in one way or another. Whereas the vanilla game seems pretty intent on, you decide what you want to do, when you want to do it, and you go and do it. You need to put a foot forward to do it, sure. Like, you need to be the guy to take that first step if you're gonna do it, but generally the game will give you an open door to step through when it comes to, like, I would like to hard focus on building or progression or this or that and have enough content to, like, get me by, And if you enjoy it all in balance with each other, like, if you enjoy, I don't want to say as intended, because I don't believe there is an intended way to play for this particular game.
No, of course not.
But, like, if you go through the game with a healthy mix of all of the aspects of it, I think you'll get an easy, like, 30 to 40 hour play in without really feeling that bored of it,
Yeah. Yeah, fairly comfortably. And I think that is a remarkable thing for a game to be able to do, at least a sandbox game. Because, like, we've played a little bit of Gmod somewhat recently, and,
And do you
like,
know what? They've managed to, like, dodge feature creep pretty well, too. Sorry, I just thought of
yeah.
this. That's a game a lot of these, like, yeah, this game has been receiving updates since 2010. Oh, God. You know, like, I know what that means, usually.
Hmm.
That means I'm gonna open it for the first time as a new user and see 50 UI elements that I do not recognize, and then I'm gonna have to learn 90 button combos that got added over the years, and then I'm gonna be introduced to a really easy way to do thing A, but very similar thing A.1 cannot be done that way. You have to go through the old archaic menu for that. That's usually what that means, is added complexity and
Mm.
feature creep of, like, yeah, the best armor in the game 10 years ago is nowhere near as powerful as what we have today due to, like, more and more armor sets and
Hmm.
things being added. It seems that the limitations on the development team really, like, assist in keeping the game cohesive and true to what it was while also pushing it forward a little bit every time, if that makes any
Yeah,
sense. And you were talking about, we've been playing
I
Gmod
totally
recently,
agree.
and that's very different in its sandbox nature. But did you have a point about that at all, or?
No, no, not really. Just that, like,
Oh, I
that
was just trying
kind
to
of
lead you back in.
sandbox creep is just very noticeable. That Minecraft is, like, not having that, just because, like, yeah, we've been playing a good amount of Gmod recently, and it's kind of hard to play Gmod after a while. And of course, that's up to us getting more mods. But,
Oh
like,
yeah, you had that
we've got
idea
a
to put,
decent
like,
amount of stuff
to
going
go get
on.
boss
But
fights and shit, and I think that's a good idea. I think that was a really
yeah,
solid idea to just do some fucking boss fights occasionally.
yeah, but, like,
But
the
either way.
sandbox nature of Gmod, just, like, it gets boring after a while, and for a vanilla game to, like, a vanilla sandbox game to not get boring after a while is really impressive. That, like, Gmod, the game where we got our own mods, bored us quicker than Minecraft has by, like, decades of difference, you know? Um, no. I just think Minecraft is honestly, like, an impressive thing just because of that aspect, I guess is what I'm saying with it, is just, like, they're really good at the survival sandbox thing, and I don't think people give them enough credit. I feel like Mojang gets dogged on far too often, and we don't ever talk about what they're, like, actually good at, and we never give them the credit they deserve, you know?
Yeah. I'll say this,
Well,
Minecraft, I always sort of shy away when the conversation of how many hours do you have in X game happens, because I don't really play games all that long. And what I'm realizing now isn't that I'm really that short of a video game player or short of an attention span for video games, and it's more that, like, everybody's game is on Steam but mine, and mine is fucking Minecraft, the one game that doesn't have an hour count. But I assure you, if it did, mine would be well into the millions at this point. I don't want to even conceive of how much of my life has been spent in the block game.
yeah. Yeah. Anyway, that was our Minecraft topic. Fizcraft has been a really good time, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think we have much more to add on top of the like game that we've been playing forever. But yeah. Do you have anything else that to go off of
I
Minecraft?
have some more things that can go off of Minecraft, and I want to say that, like, actually I have a very specific topic I wanted to talk about that I thought was pretty interesting. Games that update over a long period of time is actually a topic that I have here to talk further about. Um, in the vein of, like, 3 or 4 games that, like, some of which have been around a very long time, some of which have been around slightly less time, but all have a good 5 or more years under their belts of consistently adding more and more shit to their game. And that's knowing all of these games for almost as long as they've been adding shit to them. Roblox, Minecraft, Fortnite, etc. Games of that nature that have
Hmm.
received, like, pretty much free content or free, like, evolutions upon their systems throughout the years. Whereas, like, it's been really interesting to watch that sort of landscape evolve, because I remember when Fortnite's Battle Royale first got off the ground, there was that big conversation that everybody had about, like, well, live service games this and games that receive updates that, and, like, the general
Hmm.
consensus ended up being that updates bad, you should just release your game as is when you finish it, and that should just be the video game forever. You know, like, we should have a lot more of that. And from AAA studios, maybe. Yeah, maybe that case is to be made. But honestly, in recent years, I've come so far around on it that now that we've given that learning period a chance and gotten out of the rocky point of, like, yeah, now we just have multiple games that have been running for, like, well over 5 years that have all received pretty consistent content updates over that time that, like, have existed that long enough to prove that, like, no, this format actually does reap benefits at a certain point. There is a point where having a game like this works out. And for something like Roblox, I have a little less to say about it. I think it's my evil example, honestly. But
Yeah,
it's the
Roblox
example I
is
picked out because it's community driven in its quote unquote like updating, where Roblox has always been a platform for you to make a game on. And that's been the case like forever. And so like between Minecraft's updates and Fortnite's updates, and then something like Roblox that's been entirely community driven with its like updating and evolving over time. I think games as a weird amalgam that just sort of shaped themselves with the years, I think is probably fine as far as a genre of game goes these days. I don't really think I see much issue with that as formatting from now on if you do it right. You know, now if you are just another game that's getting a battle pass because you want to earn a couple extra bucks off the top of your game, yeah, screw that, absolutely. But if you go out of your way to make a game good, and then it succeeds, and then you start giving more to that game, and giving the people more, like, whether it be free or paid content expansions, you're going to see, like, solid growth in that period, I think, as, like, a player or a developer of such a game. And it will be rewarding to watch, even, to see it just like change and adapt over time, because that's been very rewarding to me, because I've been watching the latest Life series Past Life, which is one where they do the very original and definitely not done by every YouTuber ever idea of playing older versions of the game sequentially up to the latest version, and then like in chunks they're skipping around a little bit to like skip over, like we're not doing 1 and then 1.1 and then 1.2. No, we're going from 1.7 beta to like 1.2 release, because those are like, that's enough of a gap to be like enough to matter for the sake of like a 40-minute to an hour recording session, you know?
yeah.
But like I've been watching that, and I've been like reaffirming a lot of like, holy shit, this used to be that way, you know, through like the eyes of more people who either have started playing along that path somewhere, or like me have been watching it for a very long time evolve and are aware of these things, but are being reminded like, oh crap, the game that I love has gotten, like, Ethos Lab of all people was like, dude, everything that I don't remember this version very well. Everything I'm doing feels like it takes way too long to do and takes way too much energy and effort to get done for something like digging a 10 by 10 hole, you know? And it's like, that's absolutely right. Like, there's just there's just been a lot of talk in that, and in like my personal, of just like, oh man, there is a marked improvement in the product that I have today because of the product I bought 10 years ago. And I think that's really interesting, both about Minecraft and about, you know, Fortnite as well, with its like battle pass system. Is like, you don't see a lot of that stuff, but a lot of that stuff you get to own. So like I'm still planning on using a lot of the skins, and I still do use a lot of skins that I've previously bought. And so like it does end up being cumulative at a certain point, where it's like, oh yeah, I just saw a stormtrooper shoot down Bob from Bob's Burgers while Goku powered up in the background. You know, and it's like, that is not a sentence that makes any sense to anybody who played Fortnite exclusively 4 years ago, even. You know? Like, that's something that barely makes any sense. And so it's like even like 4 years ago, need I remind you, is still well into when they were doing collabs. They were just getting off their feet with it, really, where they were getting a lot of major brands, sure. But something like Star Wars or Dragon Ball was like unheard of, you know? Even if they did get Marvel, that was seen, at least from the people in my circle, as just like, oh, well, this is a flash in the pan. No shot they managed to get other huge companies immediately after this, like, without like working up and showing that they can do that. And it's been more of a shock to see indies than AAA things show up in this. And like, I think that's really interesting. That like Fortnite as a game has grown so much as well. And Roblox as well has like gotten some community creations and some community feedback. I want to be very careful about what I'm saying here. That like the child labor shit, yeah, fuck all that. But like,
Oh yeah.
The system as a whole has evolved not because of the reason that makes that interesting is it's evolved not because of like the creators of the game that run it in the shadowed secret darkness and take it down for maintenance every like once a week, and then bring it back up in a couple hours with loads of new content that you had never seen before and hasn't even been teased, like as opposed to that with Fortnite and the in-between we get in Minecraft, where Minecraft players have a lot of influence over what does and does not make it into the game and how it makes it into the game, like in terms of functionality. Roblox is interesting because it's almost entirely community driven, where like you see styles of game on Roblox fall in and out of fashion. You see certain like cosmetics and certain like game types, certain like sets of lingo and like site branding changes bring on community changes as well. So like even as like the company for Roblox adds more and more things to their game in terms of like, here's a new player model that you can be, here's this, here's that. I think they just released the ability to add custom, like completely custom, like animated emotes into the game. And so that's interesting. And so watching something like that that's almost entirely community driven evolve too has been like equally as interesting for different reasons, I think. Anyway, you got a take on that? Sorry, I was going off for quite a minute there. I just had a lot to get out on the subject.
Like I completely agree that I think it is really nice. This like I think live service games. I had a big issue with them. I was in the crowd of just
yeah. How's your opinion on them evolved?
And I definitely I was afraid of it in like the oh fuck me, every game ever is gonna be like, dog shit, incomplete when it came out. But no,
nice
I think it's more foster to like,
yeah,
I know. I was talking through it. I was fighting through it. But like, I really thought it was going to be like PUBG or Fortnite, where like when they first came in, because they're a live service game, it's so just like, yeah, this is what do you expect, dude? Like we're right at the beginning of it. It's still quote unquote alpha, which alpha and beta doesn't mean fucking shit anymore, by the way, apparently.
Games just come out when they're in beta. Alpha is the development period, and then beta is the release period. It's weird. And then you just update and use the community as playtesters until your game is done, and then it's done. Like 3 or 4. Like Power Wash, where you hear about, like, oh, Power Wash is finally out, and it's like, I've played through it many times. What do you mean? And it's like, oh, you mean the game has hit its 1.0 finished version. Are they still going to be making content and updates for it? Yes? Then in what way does this indicate that this is a finished product now? It doesn't really mean anything for something to be done now, because, like, there is no capstone anymore. The Tower of Babel just keeps getting higher and higher, and nobody really understands why or how. But, like, if they keep passing me free content over the table, I'm gonna keep having it, Like, I'm happy to sit here and feast on, like, all the stuff that we get. I just worry about developers. I worry about the state of the industry in a few years if it keeps up the standard of, once you release a game, you are pretty much, like when you buy an indie game these days, or at least when I buy an indie game, I work under the assumption that, like, this is the game I'm buying, and I'm happy with the game I'm buying. But most people work under the assumption, and I sometimes find myself assuming this too, that, like, this is totally a game that's gonna get regular updates for a while, and then is gonna be really good to watch evolve, and then is gonna be fucking phenomenal in a few months, and I'll just get, like, a guided tour of every feature as they come out, basically, by having it early. And, like, that's solid or whatever, but it's like, how does that affect the dev who thought their game was done until people were asking for updates suddenly? And it's like, you guys expect that?
Yeah.
Okay. And then they have to commit to that. Or think that they have to commit to that at the very least. And so it becomes a real issue. And so I'm worried for that eventuality of it is what concerns me at the moment.
Yeah. Where it's like, it almost felt like, so Peak was a game that I think was pretty good because they had said it was a game jam demo from what I remember. I could be wrong on that, but they had said they had just made it off rip as like one and done. It makes a randomized mountain. Here's how you play the game. Here's the things you can do at it. Here you go. And it seemed like they were almost like by popularity, forced into having it not just be like this is the mountain climbing game. These are all the items. You get a handful of them. There are a couple different mountain variations. Maybe you'll see them. Maybe not. Who cares? We made it. We're done with it. Here it is. And it feels like they almost got bullied into like live service. And don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining, dude. Apparently, I had just seen
Well, I think
today,
if
like
you make
8
a
hours
game
ago.
and one of the selling points, I feel like Peak is the one time you don't like get to say that you were bullied into it for the sake of like you made a game where the whole point is that it is different every day, you know, and that there is like a major difference and it works on a real actual 24-hour like sort of timer. And so I feel like that definitely insinuates the want for more content and definitely plants that seed for sure. But I see where you're coming from on it, where it seems like with certain features they were like, no, we don't want to add that, and then the community was like, add that, and then they added that, i.e. like cannibalism and whatnot, which is something they vocally said, hey, we don't want to add this to our game, and then people kept asking, and then eventually they buckled and went, you know what, fine, we'll do it. And then they did it, and I think it might be one of the weakest features in the game, honestly. I think it might be one of the most haphazard, fine, here you go things they've put in. And not that it's bad, it's just as polished as everything else, it's just there is a, like, noted difference in my like to my like perception at least of the way it was implemented. Even it just seems like, yeah, we gave you cannibalism, are you happy? Because you have to have like 90% of your hunger bar. It used to be 60, now it's like 80, I think, actually, not 90.
Oh wow,
but like,
you
have to have like 80% of your hunger bar full, and to get that you're gonna have to go way out of your way to do it. You are genuinely going to have to like starve to death to get that,
like
unironically,
and then
you can't eat anybody,
the first time it came in, it was at 60%, which is the lowest it's ever been. And we had a friend who was like, I'm gonna eat you, and he kept like threatening it to the point where I was like, well, if you're gonna keep threatening it, then I have to eat you now. Like, this is just what has to happen. I got to the point where I had to, like, I genuinely had to rely on the person I was going to eat to help me, like, keep up. Like, I was like, hey, can you help me? Mm-hmm.
God, and this was like, I don't mean to badmouth anybody in the show. Don't take it that way. This is all in good fun. Like,
of course,
this is how they like to play video games, and that's fine. But this is the kind of friend that, like, if the like, here's the button that fucks all your friends over for your amusement, like, no matter what, even if that makes you a dickhead, it's gonna get pressed like more times than would reasonably be funny. Like 8 or not, like you just this is the kind of person that, like, if a game has that kind of a feature and you're playing it with them, you just have to accept that you have no stakes this playthrough, like, at all. You can't have any stake in it. And that's just, like, it's a fun way to play.
Kind of cruising.
And so, like, that's why, like, when they started threatening it, was like, I was like, oh man, I gotta start climbing. And so I didn't even notice you struggling until I was already at the top. Because I was just like, man, I'm going. I'm not having the one time I get 3/4 of the way up the mountain ruined because some dickhead tried to bite my leg off and killed me on the way through.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was genuinely, like, damn near impossible, to the point where I was like, okay, and that's the one time that anybody will ever eat anybody. Because, like, it fucks you over to the point where, like, good luck trying to keep up with us and eat me. Like, the only reason that this worked for me was because you didn't know I was doing it and you were helping me. You know?
Yeah, you're like the person, like, that was going to eat you was helping you up. Yeah. And not me, but them. That's not. I want to be clear that I'm not talking about myself in the third person about how I play video games here, because you just started saying you instead of them at some point. Jed. You gotta understand, man. You gotta get that.
Sorry,
under control,
I use the
man.
royal
you sometimes
you
switch
a lot.
to the royal
I use it
you
far too much.
Yeah, you switch to the royal you
for a two-person show.
Like, yeah, a little too often when there's only one you could be referring to in the room with you. But either way. Yeah, no, Peak has been pretty solid, though. Apparently, they're adding a new biome tomorrow as of when this comes out. So, like, the 11th, we're getting, like, a desert area. I don't know where they're going to squeeze it in, but that makes me want to play some more Peak now and go ahead and get the rest of the achievements for getting to the top while doing X thing before it's 5 areas and not 4. You know?
Yeah, no, I definitely think it's cool where it's, like, they definitely are live servicing it, but it does feel like they have been in a position where they wouldn't normally live service it because Landfall and Aggro Crab have never done a live service prior to this, right?
No, neither of them have ever
Um,
done like a game that receives
yeah,
many updates at all after the fact. I mean, if you consider content warning
Tabs
live
kind of
service,
had
I
that.
wouldn't consider content warning live service, but it was in this same sort of vein of video game where it's like, yeah, it just gets regular updates for things. And even then it got like 3
Yeah,
updates ever. Like that game is genuinely like
yeah.
I don't know how people get so many hours out of it. I genuinely played it like 5
I
times and
don't
was
get
like, yeah, I
it.
feel like I've gotten everything I can out of this game.
Oh yeah,
I'm
that
having
game
an
I always
epiphany.
get my teeth kicked in. You're having an epiphany?
Most people don't play video games to like fuck around in a way that will be perceived by your friends. Like yeah, they do bits for each other, but they don't do bits that would be in any way assisted by having like props. Like they don't think of things in video games
Oh
as being
yeah.
props for bits or anything, and we do often. So I assume like most people get that out of it because there's like such an emphasis on fuck around in front of a camera with your friends. And so like
Hmm.
I guess that's an angle of it of like we constantly play like we're doing like a bit for a camera almost. And so like and that's
Yeah,
fun for me at least. But it's just like, I see why people don't play games that way. And then now I'm thinking of like, yeah, I see totally why people got that many hours out of it actually. But in terms of actual like game content,
yeah,
you can see it all in like an hour. Genuinely. If you play for
for
an hour and
sure.
you play
I
well, you can
just
see all of it. It's done.
the problem with that I have with content warning is that there's no rhyme or reason to it really. I think like there is a rhyme or reason to making a good video and content warning. However,
Real
it's
hard to
very reliant
succeed.
on the RNG. So it's like you can't even just be like, well, we're gonna stay here until we get the shit, like you can in like Lethal Company or anything, where it's like, yeah, we're probably fucked. Whatever, we're gonna fight through it, and if we die, we die. It's like, well, we made a video. Let's go see if we get to continue playing the game. I guess that was my one issue with content warning, was it was just like, well, after the mission is over, you get actually you failed that mission. And it's like, oh man. Well, there goes everything. I never could get the idea behind it is what I'm saying. Of just like I could never
I think
really
it's just because
perfect my run.
it's like the one of these games where getting back safely is still kind of difficult, but is not enough ever. Like, it's genuinely
Yeah.
not the point, and so, like, getting back safe doesn't really mean much, and so it enables more fuck-arounds. But, like, other than, as long as the camera guy makes it back, it's fine. But then you get home, and
Mhm.
turns out, no, screw you. You got in there and you got out, but you failed, so leave me alone now. Like, there being a secondary objective that resets your progress that's completely like RNG based seems real rough to me. And so I don't like for the
Yeah.
same reason as you is like I don't make much progress in that game and so I don't care to play it much.
Mhm. Yeah. But that's mainly how I feel about content warning, and it is nice that they have Peak now, which is a live service game that they
Oh
are
yeah, Peak is
updating,
much better in my
and like
opinion than
you know,
content warning. So that's why I totally don't
oh
mind
yeah,
giving
yeah,
content warning a little bit of shit every now and again. Um
hmm
Speaking
but
of games receiving updates, Painter Boss Paradise for Castle Crashers came out. We've yet to play around with it. We'll report back next week
mhm.
on playing around with it. But I think this is such. Have we talked about this on the show yet? We talked about that
We
they
have,
announced it,
yeah. But we haven't talked about it in action
but I
because
don't think
it
we
wasn't
talked
in
about it
action until
since
this week.
like, yeah, like we've gotten at least you. Actually, no, you weren't there. You were on
Yeah.
your I'm gonna disappear for like over an hour shit. And so like we were like, okay, well, what's on the Steam Workshop then for Castle Crash? Let's go look at that. And so we were looking at
Mhm.
that to pass time. And there's like Gordon Freeman, there's like all sorts of shit going on the Castle Crashers. And some of it is just genuinely good art. And that's it. It's just a genuinely solid piece,
Yeah.
and that's that. And I love
It's
that. I love
really
that
cool.
people are putting a lot of effort into this, and that people are having a lot of fun with this element of the game that they've added.
Like I don't know. I was such a like I was very into Landfall as a kid. Like I was super into it. But like it's so nice to see modern that like wow, Landfall is still a company where it's like they seem to actually give a shit about their games. Nonetheless, like even
Behemoth.
though they aren't super Behemoth. Sorry, fuck me.
Yeah, maybe
My
name
bad.
drop the like. I've been a fan of this company for
The
years. I'm
correct
gonna name drop
company.
the wrong fucking company. Nice job, genius. Anyway,
I know. Wow. That's yeah. But
way to sound like a bullshitter. Continue.
Behemoth. Yeah. But like
They are a
I
company
did
that gives
play
a
like
shit.
a
Yeah.
bunch of their games. And it's nice to see that they still give a shit. I guess is all I'm trying to say about it. Of just like when I was a kid playing Battle Block Theater, I did not expect to be 20 and going, "Hey, there's a new update for Castle Crashers," you know. And that's just
Yeah, man.
that's awesome. I
That
want
is
more
really
game
awesome.
companies to give a shit.
In terms of most popular, can I read you off the top listings here on the workshop? It is Isaac
Go
Clarke
ahead.
from Dead Space, Soldier TF2, King Knight from Castle Crashers, Doom Guy, Hank J. Wimbledon, a Madness Combat Skit. This must be some like Roblox shit, man. Oh no, this is like a is this like a Newgrounds thing? Whatever. And then Wax Knight, who's like a candle guy. Is he in the game? Carl from Aqua Teen Hunger
No.
Force. And then Necromancer skin of some kind.
Oh yeah, it's a variation of the Necromancer character. That's just
Yeah.
he has like a skeleton showing.
There's a bottle of ranch on the front page here too that I'm seeing.
Most
It's a
subscribed.
real
There's a Doom
eclectic
guy,
group.
Hatsune Miku. Oh, King
Yeah,
Knight
no.
is from Shovel Knight.
Oh, he's the guy from Shovel Knight, right? Not from this game, but either way,
Yeah.
enough naming of characters. I just wanted to get that out of the way.
Of
That
course,
like this is
yeah.
like adding workshop support to Castle Crashers is adding work every. I'm gonna say this. This may come off funny. I think literally every game on Steam should have workshop support. I could hear tomorrow.
Yeah.
You pick any game out of my library, any of them, including like the ones that are like software titles, and then I will go. And if you say like X game now has like workshop support, hell yeah, I'm gonna go play that now. Like genuinely every time, even if it's something I haven't picked up before, that is usually enough to entice me to play through it once normally and then give it a good modded pass. Because the Steam Workshop is like the best way to mod a video game. Genuinely, it is the greatest tool we have in modern video games on the PC in terms of like being able to mod things. Like sure, like and let me say this. If your game has a Nexus mods page, please save everyone on the entire world by giving it a fucking Steam Workshop, I beg.
Seriously.
I understand that's a lot of work. I think you have to get
maybe
approval to have a workshop. I'm not 100%
you have to get
certain on
approval,
Steam's
and I'm pretty
regulation.
sure like you have to have either like something inbuilt into the game to help like modding and things like that because like
Oh yeah,
it
like you have to
seems
make it
like
compatible with your game, and you have to put in the work to have a workshop. But that's what I'm saying is like when a
Yeah.
workshop gets added, I'm not saying it should be mandatory. I'm just saying that when a workshop is added to a game that I like, I immediately like it a lot more, and will get because
yeah.
I know that I will get at least 100 more hours out of it off that alone. Genuinely every time.
Yeah, because like genuinely just go into the Steam Workshop, browse around a little bit. Oh shit, that's pretty cool. Click the plus button and you're done. There you go. Next time you boot the game, it might have to like initialize something when you're loading up, but either way, it will in fact work. And
that content will be there and it will be functional unless otherwise stated by the person who posted it on the Steam Workshop. And if it's not functional, it's on the guy who made it. You picked the one that's screwed.
yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I genuinely think that the Steam Workshop doesn't get used anymore because like people used it when Gmod was popular because it was like, of course, the Steam Workshop, just go there. And it feels like it's kind of died with Gmod. It feels like whenever people think of the Steam Workshop, they only think of like Gmod or games similar to it. So they're like, no, I'm not going to use the Steam Workshop to like develop
and
a
that's
mod.
because,
I'm
like,
just going to go to Nexus or R2, you know?
Gross. R2 Mod Manager is gross too. I don't ever want to have to go there again. Genuinely, I
Yeah.
wish I could uninstall it today. If you're out there, listen. If you're out there and you're developing a game and you think it might maybe have a modding community, give it a workshop as soon as possible. Give it a workshop. Don't sit and allow an R2 mod man community to form. Don't allow a Nexus mods community to form. Start a Steam workshop and just stomp both of those websites to death, please. R2 Mod Man is a little more manageable. Thunderstore is a good bit more manageable than Nexus mods, but my hatred really stems from Nexus mods, dude. Screw that website. Screw attempting to navigate it. Screw everybody who's over there. All of them. They suck.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. The modders are fine, but screw anybody who made a logical decision on how this website should function, because Jesus Christ does it barely.
Yeah.
For like an end user anyway. But yeah, no, that was what happened this week. The Painter Boss Paradise thing came out, and it's for the Steam Workshop now, and that's great.
Yeah, it's always good when things are on the Steam Workshop. But man, I don't have a good transition.
Speaking of Jed, I keep grabbing a topic, going, "This is a good transition topic," and then you go, "But," and then I'm like, "Oh, well, Jed has something. I just won't do it." And then you go, "I don't have a transition. Do you have a transition?" And it's like, "Yeah, man, I would have if you gave me literally a millisecond to do one."
I'm so sorry.
if you don't got nothing, don't say nothing, man. What are we doing here? Plugging up the show. I know we fill for time here. I know we really gotta work for these 2-hour episodes. It's a real slog to get 2 hours of content out of any conversation that we have. Genuinely impossible. But we don't need to be like filling air with like ums and uhs here.
That's true.
We're not that tight in.
That's something that I need to focus on in year 2 of the show too, is that I think that I've gotten a problem with my speech where I can't leave silence. Like, for some reason, like, dead air is such a bad thing to me that I'd rather fill it with filler. And I think that is not a good thing, actually. I think that as a listener,
no content at all, yeah.
As a listener, a lot of podcasts are like they have little quiet minutes in or not minutes, but like
not
quiet
minutes,
few seconds.
But like you can have a couple seconds gap and be okay. And if it ends up getting too long, I can always edit it, or like I've got topics also. But speaking of the topics I have and things that are on the docket, I actually wanted to talk a little bit about Nintendo, because I actually didn't. I'll level with you. I heard Nintendo did a show again, and I was like, fuck. We have to talk about, but not because of Nintendo. It was genuinely because it was the only thing I had written down at the top of the week of just like, oh no, are we just gonna have another Nintendo episode where we talk about the current state of Nintendo? Because we've done like 3 of those, and so I was really worried. So I don't really want to get too deep into Nintendo themselves here, but they had another show after their partner showcase, which you could be forgiven for mixing up with their indie showcase. The difference being that this one's indie games and the other one's like AAA's. But Nintendo Indie World Showcase happened. And it's pretty soon in to the last one, but I understand they just pushed the Switch 2 out the door a month or 2 ago. They're probably really, really trying to get out there with like, hey, here's what we have. Here's what we have on our brand new console that just kind of dropped like late last year, early this year. Dude, how long were they making a Switch 2? I'm sorry. I don't need to. We don't need to go too deep. How long were they developing a Switch 2 and then actively saying, no, there is no Switch 2. There's no Switch 2. We're not developing a Switch 2. We're not planning on. I get that it would kill the sales of the Switch 1, so you can't just outright say it. But how much more marketing could you have put into the Switch 2 before it came out if you didn't spend years going, no, there is no Switch 2. It's not real. It never will be. There's no Switch 2. You know, we're not developing another console at this time. It's just the Nintendo Switch so far. You know, and maybe they weren't. But it just feels odd to completely deny it and then have your next console be the Switch 2. You know, and it's like, we don't have to get into decision-making on the Switch 2 again, but it's like, man, it feels like they kind of just dropped it with a new Mario Kart, and we're like, all right, like dropping out fucking slop for your pigs on the farm to eat. Of just like, well, here you go, guys. Here's your fucking daily dose. Have at it. I know you'll eat it. You know, and it's not like the Mario Kart or the Nintendo console was slop necessarily. The more I look at it, the less interested I am on the basis of this looks kind of boring, honestly. This looks like the experience I already had in 2017 with the last one, but marginally better. But not so much better. Like, if they released this in 2019 or 2020, I would have bought it. But today, no.
Yeah, that would have been reasonable. No, by this point, hell no. Because, like, no, I'm not going to
Far too
buy
much
the Switch.
time
Like,
in the oven
we're
for
getting
me to
the.
want it at this point. Yeah.
Oh my god, we're the people who are like, no, I'm not getting the Wii U. I've got a Wii.
But the
Except, like,
difference
this
maker
time, I
there
think it's
is that,
reasonable.
I feel like there is more value to the Wii U if you really look into it, but the more and more, that's what I thought of the Switch 2 at first, too, was like, surely this will be worthwhile, and it will be noticeably different from the experience of owning a Switch 1 in ways that I care about if I were to go and pick one up. Let me do some more research on the thing and see just where the differences lie. And the more and more, because, like, the Wii U thing was born out of, like, ignorance of the console due to its marketing being just bad in people thinking it's either
Yeah.
an accessory or a minor improvement upon the Wii U. And it's like, no, this is the first Nintendo console in HD. There's plenty of upgrade here. We got Mario Kart 8. Hell, most of the things that were good about the Switch were on the Wii U first. And so,
Yeah.
like, the thing with the Switch 2 is that, like, the more I dig and the more I try to find the, like, aha, it's not just a phony, slightly better Switch 2 with slightly different exclusives on it that are kind of the same. It's definitely its own thing that's going to have its own awesome shit on it. And maybe it will at some point. But as for now, as for, like, launch year even, looking at the titles they have coming up, I genuinely don't see much that's worth buying a Switch 2 for. You know, even still.
It's like
and
the
I know I say that every time.
PS5.
But I just found a brand new angle to not want to buy one from. It's like the PS5, but instead of having nothing on
but
it,
in
it's just
2
got the same
years?
thing on it. Like, it's like if they released
Yeah,
a
where it's
PS5
like-
and it was all PS4 games the whole way, but, like, different a little bit.
Like, genuinely, the PS5, people were like, oh, the PS5 has no games. But at least in 2 years, yeah, the PS5 would have games, and it will be able to play them. In 2 years, the Switch 2 is going to have games, but they're gonna look like shit because it's outdated hardware. Yeah, no, it definitely still...
I'd argue the PS5 is still a dead fuck console, generally speaking.
But at least it could play, like, Fortnite at good resolution.
Yeah, at
like,
least you got good hardware.
The problem is
like,
that...
Yeah, the PS... Oh, I see what you mean. The PS5
Yeah.
has no games, sure, but at least you're getting a decent video game console that can run all the games that it shares across the platform that aren't worth buying it for, necessarily.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You're not buying it... Like, even if you did buy it with God of War in mind, at least when you got God of War, you also got a system that can run modern video games at a decent frame rate and will get ports and everything, you know? I guess that's the case, yeah. That is a big difference.
Because, like, that's what I mean by it. Because, like, I am a dumbass PS5 owner because, you know, I am a slave to fucking Jesus Hideo Christ or whatever the fuck they call him over there. Like, I'm a slave to his video games, so I own a PS5. But at least I know that, like, hey, if my PC shits out, at least I'll be able to play modern titles. That's why I have such a hard time recommending anything having to do with the Switch 2 to anybody, even Nintendo fans, because it's like, dog,
There's not much like for anybody except for Nintendo fans, typically on a Nintendo console.
Yeah,
and then like when you get down to it, is like, yeah, like all we have really are our first parties. But their first parties are very lacking, and their hardware gimmicks are lacking. And those are like the two things that Nintendo's usually really good at when it comes to console intrigue. And so it's odd to see them falter in this way, where it's like, the hardcore Nintendo fans seem to be having an awesome time with the new Mario Kart and Donkey Kong games. But me, as somebody
I'm sure,
who definitely used to be a very big Nintendo fan, and definitely probably would have played these games as they released, if they released a decade ago, when I was way more fanatically into it. But as somebody who has literally any other interests at all in video gaming, I can't justify the purchase of a Switch 2 in the current day. I just can't do it.
And they've just completely lost the market of people like us who are like, yeah, I do like Nintendo consoles when they do something interesting. They've just decided that they've found a market that is stable, and that's fair. Like, finding a stable market is important. It's incredibly important for keeping your business alive. However, I think to some degree, I don't like that video games are a business because it causes shit like that.
Art as a business does become a problem in a lot of very unique ways.
Yeah.
And that's a huge discussion to be had that I think I do want to put on my topics list, but I'm not sure I need to get to this episode.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure I have all my ducks in a row on that
episode,
subject, but I do want to talk more at length about that on the show at some stage. But anyway,
Yeah.
video games being a product and like in some cases a service, as we've talked about before, really makes them less art. I feel it definitely
Mhm.
like quells the art of it a little bit in that like this is something people do to make money, and it's like it seems to affect it uniquely because I think it's because like the consumer is so involved in the content of it as opposed to like playing a game is much more involved than like and is much more attached to you as a person and is much more of an experience to you as a person than going to like a movie or something. And so I find that the things that happen in video games are often the same things that happen, weirdly enough, in like places like the theme park industry, where like, you know, because people interact with these things and because people get their hands dirty with them and really like get down in there, people want to have more of a say in like where things go and what happens, you know, to the things that they have.
Mhm.
And so that's led to a lot of pushes for like, well, who gets the freedom and liberty in this situation? Who gets to decide? The audience thinks they get to decide, and the companies think they should have all the say, and like executives anyhow, and like the artist is just kind of stuck between the middle, like that divorce image, you know.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
just
so you
like
do
that
end up
divorce
with
image, but for
a
like
lot of games that end
art
up in the pits
pieces.
because of like either consumers want one thing and executives want another, or just simple plain greed, you know.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, but Nintendo is going to do what they're going to do, and there's nothing that we could say about it other than like, if you can help it, don't buy a Switch 2. In fact, I don't know where you could get these things, but it's not hard to find. If you're looking for a handheld console that plays Switch games, maybe check out the Retroid Pocket that we talked about earlier.
The Retroid
Like,
Pocket
you
is
know,
completely legal and you're allowed to talk about it, unlike your
I
game
like,
dingus that you bought that's got like a felony
yeah.
quantity of pirated material on it.
Yeah, but like I just mean like where you can get the Switch games for it, because that's the thing about it. The Retroid Pocket can play Switch games, so if you're like fucking fiending for Breath of the Wild,
Listen, if
it's
you
significantly
okay,
cheaper.
let me run you through something here. Potential user. Let's say you own a copy of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 and you want to play that right now on your Retroid Pocket or on your computer, and your Switch has recently given out or is starting to give out and you're thinking of buying a Switch 2 to play it. Here's what you can do. You can, let's say you own a copy of the game, you know? Take it, have it backed up, or legally grab a backup of it off the internet with the like consent of the rights holders, wink wink, and then
Mhm.
load it onto the system and play it. I'm just saying you need to get a ROM file, and I'm just saying you can get that from your own cartridge or somebody else's own
Mhm.
cartridge as long as you own the video
And
game.
that is why ROMs are completely legal. Like,
Yeah, and that's
it
why that
is
stuff
not
is
a problem
completely
to have
legal and not
emulators.
piracy. It's not a piracy issue to have an emulator, but owning ROMs for games that you
Yeah,
don't own would be very illegal. And you do own this
but
game
you know,
for the sake of
you own it.
for the sake of the hypothetical here. You own the game, you know. And
Of
even if
course, yeah,
hypothetically you
and
didn't, hypothetically you do. If anybody
hypothetically, you
asked.
could. We've gotten so bizarrely like we've taken a turn recently about like media preservation on this show. It has become like
I've
a really
always been
heavy
sort of
recurring
radical
topic.
about that. It's just something that hasn't been super relevant until the past few weeks. And so, like, it's always relevant, of
Yeah,
course, but it's been about the same
of
level
course,
of
yeah.
relevance, but it hasn't been as relevant to us and the things we experience on a day to day. Oh, speaking of media preservation and Full Metal Alchemist
Hmm.
specifically, we were watching more Full Metal
Oh,
Alchemist, and we hit a point where genuinely the version of the episode dubbed, like the dubbed version of the episode in English, was
yep.
just gone. Not on any service,
Couldn't
not
find it anywhere.
downloadable
Dead
anywhere,
torrent.
all dead torrents. There are a bunch of piracy sites with copies of the show that I'm sure one of them has it at some point. But going down the list, we genuinely couldn't find anywhere even remotely reputable to watch that episode of that show. Let alone that show.
Yep.
Mainstream streaming services don't have it. And you can pirate it in its entirety just about. But like, that episode specifically, you want to watch just that one? That one's not available, really, unless you
And
have,
it's
like, the whole show downloaded or the whole show on DVD, you know?
it's an
Which I'm
episode
not even
that's
sure they did
really
home
important
releases.
to the plot of the original. They did
Yeah.
do home releases, I'm pretty sure. But like, good for
Good
the
luck
same reason of
finding
like,
one
yeah,
from
you could probably
2003 and
find something.
2025. Yeah.
Yeah,
But it's
exactly.
a episode that's very important to this version of the show, and from what I understand, it deviates very heavily from Brotherhood, and so it's
Oh
not
yeah.
something you could surrogate in an episode of Brotherhood for in your watch through. No, you
Yep.
would have to see this version of this episode if you wanted to, and so being able to. It's not to the point where this episode is lost media, but it's at the point where being able to comfortably watch it, it may as well be at this point. And so it's at a
Yeah.
very scarily close to extinction point. And it's not great. And so that was just an interesting addendum I wanted to add that we ran into literally just last night when talking
Mhm.
about like media preservation and how important it is to hold on to things and how lost media is like a huge prevalent issue in the internet age.
Yeah. Yeah. And I thought it was fucking crazy because I was like, "Oh, well this site has it. Of course they're going to have like, one of each episode, right? Because that's reasonable enough." No, man, like
You know who I
things just
blame?
entropy is a real thing.
I
Hmm?
blame internet safety advisors. That's who I blame. People who teach internet safety. Those are the kind of people that I blame. Because do you know what their 3 favorite words are? The internet is forever. Anything you put up on the internet will never go
Yep.
down no matter what for any reason. And so a lot of people assume it's in the cloud. It's safe. It's fine. And for your privacy reasons, that's a very good thing. It's a very good like thing to keep into account. Don't get me wrong that like anything I
Mhm.
post does have the potential to literally be here forever. Just like if I post a picture
Yeah.
of my feet on Twitter, odds are that picture of my feet on Twitter is going to be reposted by somebody at some point, and then it will be out there in a way that I don't want. But that I think people
Mhm.
like take that as like a constant, as something that is true of the internet itself and not a precautionary measure for
Yeah.
like personal safety, and thus we end up with a lot of cases where it's like, oh, well, the internet's forever. I saw a copy of this online 10 years ago. It can't be lost media because it's on the internet, And so I feel like
Yeah.
people set it and forget it when it comes to this kind of stuff and don't realize how much active effort has to go into that sort of preservation.
Cuz like I had a very minor moment a couple of years ago when I went back to watch Brotherhood for myself where I was like, "Oh, it's off
Mm-hmm.
of Netflix now. I'll just pirate a copy and then I'll hold on to it." And recently I came across the pirate and I was like, well, I guess I'll just keep this because maybe it won't be there somewhere else." And I'm glad I did now because, like, the same series, just like, of course, the different version, gets to be a dead torrent, and it's like, wow, I don't mind that I'm keeping Brotherhood. I should be keeping more series that I keep close to my heart, And that was partially why I picked up the Retroid Pocket, is just because it's like, man, if shit goes down, at least that thing, like, even without the grid, like, without power at all, if you could get an AC, like, voltage to power the thing, you can have whatever media you want that I have on there. And
Jed,
it's forever, and
are
nobody
you
can take it
just
away.
dreaming about the fall of society every night? You seem to have taken it like a real like doomsday. Like it's like because we'll have a conversation and I'll go, man, bologna sandwiches are good. What a good preservative meat. And you'll go, yeah, man, if the grid ever goes down, making bologna sandwiches won't go anywhere every time about everything. So I have to ask, are you on your doomsday prepper shit as of late? Because I feel
I'm
like that's a
not
little extreme.
I'm not on like a doomsday prepper shit. I very quickly realized that like nothing is forever and like nothing, you can't ever be certain of
Oh,
anything. So
you've
it's
just
like,
gotten like a good handle on that of like, yeah, no, things are
yeah,
temporary and this is something I'm going to have to plan for.
anything important to
You got to
me,
plan
I
for
would rather have.
temporariness. Yeah, you got to do your own preservation. I'm
Yeah.
glad you're a guy who does his own legwork for that because in 20, 30 years when like, hey, this episode of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is gone because it's a show from 20 something that nobody really cares about in the year 2040 except for people who watched it or cared about it or want to get into it as like a niche thing. So, what the heck do we do about that? You can be the guy who comes to that and goes, "Oh, I just so happen to have put the whole show on a drive several decades ago, and I still
Yep, here you
maintain it
go.
on my personal server today. Here you go." And you might be the single guy who has a copy of that. Genuinely.
Yeah.
You might be
And
like,
it's
and
like
I doubt it because that's such a popular piece of media, but my sentiment still
Of course.
stands on doing your own legwork.
But that's how I
Even though
thought.
I doubt it, you never know what will go missing. You never know what will end
That's
up
what I
being
thought
lost
about
to time.
2003 of just like, hey man, if you're gonna watch one or the other, definitely watch Brotherhood. Don't watch Full Metal Alchemist 2003.
Yeah,
and like, I guess I didn't ever consider that like you just couldn't at some point, you know.
Yeah, no, that's
And
the thing is
now
that like
we're here.
because I feel like we had a conversation about this last week on the show. I'm not 100% sure, but like we had a whole thing about like, yeah, I didn't think, from your perspective, because I believe what you were saying last week was I didn't think that the original series was worth watching, and now post having watched up to where Brotherhood begins in the main series and then switching to Brotherhood, I feel like I have more of an appreciation for it. And I feel like would you say that's true? Because I feel like
Absolutely.
that you imagine a world where the version of that original show was never kept, and you did get to see it, but you only saw it the one time, and then that was just that, and you just had this image,
and I would have been fine with
image
it.
and perception of it in your head, but you never would have gotten to have what you have now with it, where it's like definitely like, no, this is a worthy part of the franchise, even if it is a little bunko sometimes. Even if it does divert halfway through, and even if it does this or that, it's definitely better to have it than not. And I think it's interesting that without it, and in the temporary nature of things, that would have just been dust in the wind, that thought. It wouldn't have ever come to you.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, there were a lot of scenes in Full Metal Alchemist and not in Brotherhood that I thought were just in Brotherhood, because they're like, oh yeah, I remember that character moment. It was when, they did this thing. And it's like, no, that was in Brotherhood. That was in the original. We just decided to skip it just for time reasons of like, yeah, we've already animated that sort of thing, where it's like, we already animated that. That's mostly filler. We can fill them up to like, the first 10 episodes are like, by that point, you're probably clear of the original's animation, where it's like, that's crazy, especially because that was like we experience a full season and a half of the original series in 10 episodes in Brotherhood. And like, I think that it does deserve its right of being like, hey, the early part of it does really establish our characters pretty well. Like they have definitely some weird moments, especially on the filler episodes. I don't know what happens to the writing on the filler episodes of Full Metal Alchemist,
like it's
the
done
original.
by a different I think it's just because they play so close, assumedly. It seems like from an untrained eye who hasn't read the manga in any capacity, it seems like they're playing really, really close to it where they can and making minor alterations. And then when they have to fill in a gap with their own material for filler, they kind of have just a different house style for writing than the manga does. And so you really notice when it's like, yeah, we have to do this. In the same way that like characters that appeared in the manga that appear on screen are almost identical to their manga counterparts. However, like a lot of the character designs that were like altered or were original for the show, all those alterations and new characters are very visible in like the stylistic differences of how they're drawn.
Yeah, they look like Yu-Gi-Oh characters almost.
It's like somebody trying to adapt to the manga's style and their own style, so it lands somewhere in the middle that's kind of uncanny in terms of artistic identification.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like again, we wouldn't have any of this because like without media, all we have is our recollection of it, and I don't know about you, but my memory is too faulty for me to trust myself to remember anything verbatim enough to like, well, the original thing, the original, like, just burn the film, it's fine, I know what it is. I've seen it, and I've got it down, it's fine, and it's like, no, I'll never have it that good, And so I feel we should preserve these things as best as possible, and that's just where I'm at with it.
Yeah, but especially, like... Sorry, now I'm thinking about the writing in the original Full Metal Alchemist. It feels like they have a template of the characters, and that is the character.
Oh, yeah.
Edward Elric is short, and he hates the fact that he is short.
And
it's like, we are going to bring that up. Done. Yep. And it's so funny, because it's like, I am Edward Elric, I am the youngest state alchemist, I tried to bring my mother back, this is my plot synopsis, I'm going to say this to every character ever in the filler episodes. And then once we get
angry,
to episodes written about the manga...
in kind of a melodramatic way. Those are the two characters.
Yeah.
That's what they are in the fillers. But yeah, no, But speaking of animation, speaking of anime,
Mhm.
King of the Hill got a revival recently, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that on the show. And hey,
Yeah.
man, what other way? You know what? You want to laugh at me calling it an anime. However, I almost don't say
No,
it
I
as a
just think
joke
it's
anymore.
funny.
Just because, dude, they did a time skip where a child character played by a woman is still played by that same woman as an adult in the sequel series. Where else do they do that?
Yeah, man.
Dragon Ball. And also very
Yeah.
commonly because of Dragon Ball and other pieces of anime. And not only that, having a time skip to like, yeah, we're in the next generation now very suddenly this season. Very anime. So we're
Yeah.
getting weirdly anime with the King of the Hill thing. It's becoming less and less of a joke the more similarities crop up. Once they start outsourcing the animation to Japan, but it like looks the same, that's when we're gonna have like a thing. That's when it will fully make the
Yeah.
transition. But King of the Hill got a revival, and that's something that I care a whole heck of a lot about. And I've been watching it. I didn't want to watch it without
Have
everybody. I've watched an episode, and then I watched another one immediately after. And let me get into it.
Mhm.
So the first episode, so the plot is the Hills, the Hills, as in Hank and Peggy, after Bobby was old enough to like be out on his own, they left and moved to Saudi Arabia on a military base
What?
for some reason. So they've just been living over there and like having a great time, very secluded from the rest of the world. So it's basically like the answer to, well, how do we get Hank Hill to respond to modern things that have been around for more than 5 minutes? You know, because if he's in Texas the whole time, he's going to watch Texas change. But he left 2008 Texas and showed up in 2025 Texas with like new traffic laws and like different names for things. And we have the whole episode is a lot of like ugh, modern life is so hippy dippy and so like weird. And then about 3/4 of the way through, they have a moment where Hank is like, man, am I too, like, did I make a mistake by coming back? Because Saudi Arabia was actually pretty nice on that base. It was pretty good over there. And like it was almost more Texas-like than Texas is now for me. So I don't know if I really like it here anymore. I don't know if like I'm not liking a lot of the changes that I see because they make my life inconvenient or this or that. And then the next day he goes to a grocery store and a Girl Scout stops him and they go, "Hey, sir, would you want to buy some cookies from our troop?" And he goes, "Jesus Christ, are they gluten-free? Is this some kind of metaverse thing? What are we doing here?" And then she goes, No, we're just Girl Scouts and we just want to sell you some cookies. And he goes, "Oh, do you guys have any Samoas?" And they go, "Ooh, we don't have any Samoas because we don't have any Samoas." And he goes, "Oh man, I really liked Samoas." And he was like, "Man, what another like horseshit change to society for a moment." And then they go, they're called Caramel Delights now because it's nicer to the Samoan people." And he goes, "Oh, well in that case I'll take a box." And he takes a box and he looks at it and he goes, "That's a nice change." And they go, "Yeah, it's nice to be nice, isn't it, sir?" And he goes, "It is nice to be nice." And he walks away with the esteemed solution of, we are nicer to each other. We need to be nicer to each other, or the things that have changed in our day to day are all going to be inane little bullshits like I have to drive a block and a half or do an illegal U-turn to get into my driveway. You know?
Yeah, but like that's the thing is that a lot of these changes that like conservatives, because I don't mind saying conservatives here just because
No, yeah, it is a
their whole
very
thing is they
conservative point
conserve.
show. Is that this is the conservative viewpoint is where like the show lands, but again, it's a 2008 conservatives viewpoint on the modern world, and I feel like that's exactly what like a lot of people who've completely gone off the rails with like the Trump thing and everything, like as in like the people who like still support him and are like,
Oh,
man,
yeah.
we should be killing people. We need to fucking kill these people. And then it's like, well, I think if you look at the guy you were in 2008 when you just kind of smirked a little bit at like when you kind of just scoffed a little bit at gay people, but like generally were pretty polite and approachable and weren't screaming about Donald Trump day in and day out, you were a much more reasonable person and you were much nicer to be around. Like, I think showing conservatives what a conservative man looked like in 2008 walking around the modern world is good for them. I feel like it accomplishes what the show wanted to accomplish for them in being the messaging of, like, a man like you can be good and upstanding without being shitty to the people around you and without having beliefs that, like, hurt or affect the people around you negatively. And like I love that aspect of it, but it also manages to still maintain the comedy and joy and like hometown nature of King of the Hill that I have. Because I've always enjoyed King of the Hill as a piece because it's very comedically sound. It's a very funny show. I think it might be one of the adult cartoons that makes me laugh the single most out of all of them because it's very deadpan with it. It's very dry but like all the evolutions they make upon the show. In fact, like all of them, every last thing they changed about the show, I'll say, has been a marked good change. It feels like Peggy is still a little too annoying compared to how she used to be in the early seasons. Not that she's annoying, but she's a little more flanderized like she was in the early seasons, or in the late seasons, but they seem to be kind of just picking up where they left off, but with a better foot in front of them to make improvements on what was bad about the previous season, like all that time ago.
Yeah.
Like, it seems to be not making up for lost mistakes, not cash grabbing on a franchise, but telling new stories with old characters who, shocker, when you bring your characters back, you can age them up. And, like, they're doing, like, the time skip thing. I'm glad the time skip thing for revival shows is getting more and more prominent, because I'm so sick of, like, because the Phineas and Ferb thing, where they're, like, a little bit older, and it's the next summer. That's what they're doing for the new Phineas and Ferb. And then for, like, things like this, it's seeping into adult animation now, where King of the Hill is doing it. And I love that, because now you get to tell so many new stories with an adult Bobby Hill in the picture. Somebody our age on this show representing the young generation currently. And Bobby is 21, by the way. I didn't realize I was older than Bobby Hill, because Bobby Hill was a child when I was a child, you know? And then, like...
That's crazy.
I grew up, and then he grew up, and I never noticed, like, the age gap, because he was just kind of nebulously a child in, like, his, like, 12 to 13-year-old years. Like, Bobby could be 10, and Bobby could be 14, depending on the episode, for the sake of the plot, maturity-wise. And so it was very hard to nail down, like, where exactly Bobby Hill lied, especially because he was a very mature child character on television. And now, as a mature adult on television, it's so great, because it's become less that Hank is the well-adjusted, but has a couple screws loose guy, who, like, is still a conservative and sometimes gets a little too caught up in that, but will always do the right thing and play the straight man for the bits, to now Hank gets to be sort of like an older man, and sort of, like, more of that humbleness. It feels very humble as a show. It doesn't feel like any of its characters are really played exclusively for comedy anymore. It used to be that Bill Dauterive was, haha, you're fat and bald and nobody likes you, and that's your bit. And now, like, and like, you're a failed military guy. And we got some sad episodes out of Bill. We got some really solid story bits out of Bill in the original series. But minute to minute, as far as those alleyway scenes go, where they're kind of just shooting the shit before the plot or after the plot, it mostly just comes down to shut up, Bill. And now, like, we're giving Bill lines, and Bill gets to be interesting. And, like, there's still a lot of that. Like, hey, Bill is, like, the fat, bald one that we don't like that much, you know? But it comes down to, but he's still a family friend, and we still love him dearly, and I have a lot of fondness for Bill. And that's what it comes down to, is like, Bill has his problems, and I'm not at all shy about openly expressing that my friend Bill has issues, but Bill having issues is not the focus of Bill. The focus of Bill is that he's our friend, and that he's here because we love him as our neighbor and our, like, associate, you know? But anyway, I've been talking way too like broadly about this. The first episode ends, and I think the best thing that I can say about, like, yeah, it's nice to be nice. The Samoa cookies are now this, and I want you to watch this, because this is really good. And now that I've seen it, I can say that it's very fine to just pick up there. You won't really miss anything. I figured they were gonna be like the Futurama revival, where the Futurama revival did pick up where they left off, but Futurama is a very inside jokes heavy show. And King of the Hill had a lot of running gags that you wouldn't get if you just heard them suddenly now. But, like, they still make sense a little bit when King of the Hill does it. When Futurama did it, like, oh, yeah, there's that episode from, like, 4 seasons ago. Yeah, anyway, moving on. And it's like, yeah, you would have to... Like, it's like how comic books have annotations for, like, hey, if you want to learn more about this, read Supergirl issue 476. But, like, it comes down to, like... It's approachable. It's a solid revival. I fear I didn't show it to you or anybody else the night it came out for the sole reason of I'm real worried this is going to be bad, and I know Jed hasn't seen much King of the Hill, and I don't want his version of King of the Hill to be the washed-up, gross version of King of the Hill they pull out on Hulu for the sake of making a couple extra dollars off old Hank, you know? But it actually came out really good, to the point where I finished the first... My plan was to sit down, watch the first episode, so I had enough to insight on without, like, really watching too much of it, and not having it be worth watching with you guys. And then I was like, man... I have time and really want to watch the next one. Because the first one was very introductory and didn't really get into like a big plot necessarily. It felt like but it felt like settling back into a new place where it's like, yeah, now I'm here. It felt like, you know when you get home from a trip and you kind of just set the bag down and you're like walking around your house for a minute like, oh, my kitchen. Thank fuck, my kitchen. Ah, my dining room. Oh, my bed is comfortable. You know, and you have that. That's what the first episode is, mostly. It's just like, here's what changed, and now we're back, and it's good. And then the second episode actually drives us into a plot, and a very good plot that I don't want to spoil for you, because it's like a very solid King of the Hill plot. And it works on a lot of levels, but I think that's the one thing I can say about King of the Hill revival that sells it more than anything, is even if you haven't seen the original series, it's worth coming back to. It's got Keith David in it, but I would recommend watching King of the Hill. Like, it's a very bingeable show. You should sit through King of the Hill when you get the chance. But coming to this revival first is not a bad thing. But the thing about it is, the thing that I can say that sells this the most, that I was getting at a moment ago, was I watched 2 of these when I only really planned to watch 1. In a single sitting. I just and I'm not watching this on a streaming service. I may or may not have had to go through a multi-minute process to go out of my... Like, I had to go out of my way to get to the next one. Like, I had to spend a few minutes stewing on the fact that, yeah, I'm gonna sit here and watch another King of the Hill. To the point where I was, like kind of agitated by the couple minutes wait, because it's like, oh man, I really want to get back into it. You know? Like, it was genuinely that good. Which is really weird for an adult animation piece to be more than, well, I've had my 22 minutes of that, thanks. I liked it, but not enough to watch 2. Jesus, from like a modern adult animated sitcom. But these work. These, like, the King of the Hill format, the King of the Hill, like, everything about King of the Hill is still here. It still feels just like I left it. And I love that.
Yeah. That's what I've been seeing about it a lot, is I've seen a couple of clips, and I like have seen like the vague idea of like, this is Bobby.
Of course, the Hulu
right
trailers
now,
are all
like,
over TikTok. Yeah,
I'm aware of it from that that amount, but it's good to know that it is good, because it looked good, and in my opinion, at least, it looked good. And I think, I don't know, I had a point about the Samoa cookie thing of just like, I think that's what the world needs
talk about
more
that?
of.
Okay.
Is that, like, I feel like the fact that they tackled that, and they tackled it that way, was a really good thing, because I genuinely, there are a lot of Republicans, and there are a lot of Republicans who just are stubborn. They're just stubborn people who want to be
They hate
correct,
change.
and they
Don't
want
hate
things
change
to
for a
change.
reason.
They're just like,
They think they do, but
it's
generally
upsetting.
they just hate change. And it's like, it doesn't matter what the change is. I want my goddamn Samoa cookies. I don't care if they're offensive. I want them, and they better say Samoa cookies on the front of the box, or I'm not fucking buying that woke garbage. And it's like, dude, it's the same exact cookie in the box. In fact, I'd argue this is a marked improvement on the basis that there was a very slim chance that a Samoan person is going to pass Samoa cookies on the aisle and genuinely visibly be upset by them to the point where it affects them in any way. But the fact that they don't even have to have that, like, oh man, that's a little, ugh, anyway. You know, like, the fact that you don't even have to have that moment about it anymore, and, like, the odds of somebody actually being kind of upset about it or a little sad about it are just gone. They're out the window. Nobody's going to get offended. Nobody, like, I hate the word offended, too, because offended adds such, like, when somebody says, I'm offended, usually that comes off as throwing down the gauntlet, when it, like, traditionally, in my mind, when I am offended by something, it comes down to mostly just a, oh man, I wish you didn't do that. You know, like, I don't care that you did it enough to, like, fight you in most cases, unless you're, like, a Nazi, but, like, when it comes down to it, if you named, like, if you had a cookie that was, like, you know, these are Samoa cookies, and I am a Samoan person, I think it would come down to me as just like an, oh man. But I think a lot of conservatives read, hey, I'm offended by this cookie packaging. I don't really like it as, like, you need to change this now, or I'm gonna fucking kill you, you know? And it's like, It's not like that at all. It's
Yeah.
genuinely just people want the world to be a comfortable place, and conservatives don't seem to want the world to change at all because it already is a comfortable
And
place for them, you know?
it definitely is a societal issue too. I think the problem with conservatism is that like it has become this idea that they have to conserve because it's the only thing they have left. And if you give up the Samoa cookies, what's next? And it's one of those things where it's like it's not that at all, man. For the same reason that like we don't have fucking segregation. It just makes it nicer for everybody. Dude, like
Well, the
overall
neighborhood
we're
being a
doing
little, like, the morale
fine.
being a little higher isn't exactly the only reason why we're not segregated anymore, I'd say. But, like,
Well, like I just mean like for the same reason of we're
yeah, no, it
trying to
comes down to the
include
same
more
thing to
people
them in a
and
lot of
be
cases. But
nice.
that's
Yeah.
what King of the Hill is has always been for, is for through a conservative's eyes, can I, in a way that they would understand and in a way that they can sympathize with, if Hank can get okay with this change and I find him to be an upstanding guy, maybe I can too. You know, that's what it's for,
Mhm.
of just like that's what the political messaging and like the conservative lean is for in King of the Hill, is it's a mask to put on. It's a mask that like the reasonable angle on a topic takes and puts on for the sake of like, hey guys, I'm just like you. I just want the world to be like a nice place, and like I want it to be comfortable for everybody. And I mean, would you feel like it's genuinely just like a making them sit in the discomfort of it a little bit and acknowledging like, hey, well, all right, maybe me doing this is a little unreasonable. You know, it's just holding a mirror up basically and going like, this guy is reasonable and he thinks this. Like, you've deemed him reasonable on your own estimation and he thinks this. So if you don't think that, like if you don't have that level of passion about the subject, being like, yeah, you know what? This is the sane, normal answer. So saith Hank Hill. If you don't think that's normal, then by your own estimation, you are not sane and normal and need to make an adjustment in your behavior, you know? And so it was a good way to elevate that. And I feel like they've got a lot of room to still do that and do
Mhm.
like more of the comedy and enjoyable bits of King of the Hill. Because I find a lot of these shows, because I find a lot of these shows end up either coming back way too preachy or coming back way too comedy driven and ruining any like political or like cultural moments they might have with like a cheap gag one too many times. But
Yeah.
like this, honestly, I keep saying it because I'm genuinely just astounded at the amount of effort that was gone to, and this has been in development for like years, by the way. Like I've been hearing about a
Mhm.
a
Oh
King of the
yeah.
Hill revival happening since all of the cast was still with us. You know, like a few years ago.
Yeah.
Like we've lost many members of the writing team, many people who worked creatively on this show are gone, and yet those who are left and those who have replaced them have all managed to do such an effective and loving job with this franchise and given it such a caring hand that I feel very happy about it. I just, between this and the X-Men thing, I'm just puzzled as to why Disney gives Fox's stuff after they bought it so much love, but like none of that same care to their own
Yeah, I
shit.
don't know.
Why
I
they
have
allow
no
that
clue,
stuff to just
dude.
kind of persist and like be treated as golden? Because it is, and it deserves to be.
So,
But like, why not for your franchises too?
I do have a question for you then, because
Okay.
the only revival that I've really watched has been it's only kind of a revival, but the Fiona and Cake series. How do you feel like that holds up now that you've experienced like other animation coming back from like, when you
I
were a
feel like
kid
that
that
one
you
comes out
watched
pretty
it?
good too because it does something unique with it, and it isn't it very much comes off as less of a revival show. It's not like, hey, we're doing Adventure Time again. Adventure Time is back. Look, Finn and Jake, buy the merch, please. You know, it comes off more as like, hey, I am the artist who wanted to make, or I am a member of the team that made this thing, and like now me and the rest of my team would like to show you other stories in the same universe that we would like to tell, please. And
Mhm.
it feels I have a harder time grouping Fiona and Cake in with that because they succeeded so hard and did so well for what they were, and what they were wasn't just a strict revival. It was a very creatively
Yeah.
put together and very like cared about and very curated, like separated story from the Finn and Jake story. In fact, we go way out of our way to mention, hey, Finn and Jake aren't fucking here. You know?
Yeah, like we see Finn, we get to
We
have
see
like
Finn
a
for a
cool
minute,
Finn
but
adventure,
it's not the Finn.
and I
It's not like the
kind
Finn you
of
would see in a revival for the
Oh,
show.
yeah.
You know, if they were to just bring Adventure Time back, it wouldn't be that Finn for sure. So we get to see like end of days Finn, as in like the Finn that we see. Well, we've already seen end of days Finn, of course, but like exact end. But like we see like Finn at the completion of his arc, where he is just a done character.
yeah, where he's just
and
an
you don't show
adult,
that on
he
screen
gets
without
to
the
have
intention of
adventures.
never coming back to that guy. You know, because like all the
Yeah.
interesting part of Finn is gone now. Like the part of like the teenage conflict and the turmoil he had in him, it's all
Mhm.
solved now. He's just a well kiltered adventurer. You know, and while those adventures might
Yeah.
be interesting, there's not much internal conflict going on for that guy anymore. And so that very much
Yeah.
signals from the perspective of somebody who like very intently like looks at these things under a magnifying glass, signals to me that hey, we're not coming back to Finn. Finn's had his time. It's time
Mhm.
for a Fiona story. And that's fine. That's good. They've done enough to separate what was initially just a gender bent character and like managed to split it off into like its own sort of mythos within the thing. And I think that
Yeah.
exploring that mythos is worthwhile. But I don't know that I'd necessarily call it a revival. But in terms of how it holds up, if you would classify it as a revival, King of the Hill does it better as a revival.
Mhm.
But Fiona and Cake is a very big
Its own thing.
project. It's its own thing. Like I think King of the Hill does it better because it's actually committing to being a revival as hard as you can and still just as good. But in terms of being faithful to itself and not feeling like a cash grab, I'd say they're both perfectly on par with each other in terms of their quality and in terms of fan appeal. And in terms of newbie appeal for someone who isn't really as into the franchise, you know?
Again, I just haven't seen any of the revivals except for Fiona and Cake, so I was like, I remember that one being pretty good. Like, how does this line up to those ones? And it is good to know that that one does also get to hold up on its own, because it was a good time,
yeah.
and I hope that they come back to it. I think they're going to.
I
I
think
they
they're
already were
season
cleared
two.
for
They've already
another
announced
season.
it. It's just not out yet.
Yeah, but oh man, we got like 10 minutes left. What could we possibly talk about for 10 minutes on top of King of the Hill? Because this was such a good.
Because we've gotten so much out of this. Did you know? You know what? I'll lightning round them. Did you know earlier when I mentioned
All right.
Nintendo and that they did a showcase? I have a list of games here that came out in that showcase.
Let's do it.
That I was
Come
going to
on.
talk about. And we literally, like, in the process of me trying to say that we shouldn't get bogged down in a brand new angle as to why the Switch 2 is a bad idea, we did manage to do it. And I
We
feel like it was an
did.
interesting chat either way. So I don't regret
We
it
had a
at
good
all.
time.
But I feel like a good filler topic to get us through the episode. Nintendo's Indie World. They announced a few indie games. And usually my thing about Nintendo and their indie games and the ones that they let into their ecosystem, I find that like those are usually the ones that go down as like the indie games, you know? Like those are the ones that end up being the because you have to have a reputation to be on a Nintendo console to some degree. And
Of
so
course,
like
yeah.
and so like they like whatever Nintendo deems to be the indies that end up on their console tend to be what the entire industry has already deemed to be the best of the best. And so I want to run you through a few. I don't think you've played many of these. I know for a fact you haven't played at least one of these. But they got UFO 50, which is a collection of 50 games. I just wanted to get your opinion on what you feel as somebody who has either played it or not played it, as these being like, this is what indie games are this year. UFO 50, which is a 50, the modern version of those 50-in-1 cartridges with a bunch of like really well-made 8-bit games that just function
Properly
and are mostly
well done
arcade-based.
shit, yeah.
Yeah, like just somebody who like loved that and as a love letter to it made a set of them on their own. Yeah. I think I like UFO 50. I've only played the first 10 games in UFO 50 just because there's so much there, and even those I've barely even touched. But like they're really good little shitball arcade titles. Like not that they're like shitball, they're not bad. They're just very simplistic and very like high score driven. And so like as those games tend to be and consist of like 3 whole screens typically. And so it's like very easy to learn each one. And I think the 50-in-1 format for this kind of thing is like just about the only way you get to develop games like that and put it out for anybody to want to pay for it. Because nobody's realistically buying your singular arcade title even for 99 cents, of this kind.
Yeah.
And so, not arcade titles, but like NES titles. And so, like, they have like a bunch of different genres, and they're all really well done. And the ones that I've played, I've really enjoyed as little like passive games that I put on and I play in the background. But like, I think it's a pretty solid contender for like a good indie game that came out recently, in the past year or so.
Yeah, I thought
Any
it looked
opinion on
really
it?
good. I haven't had any experience with it. However, I do really like the return to the approach of like 50-1 arcade games. Like in the same way that like I'm having a good time with the game
Same
thing
thing
is
as the game
there's a
dingus.
lot of merit to having, hey, this is a game. I'm gonna boot it. I'm gonna play 15 minutes of it. Say, this is a good time.
I'm gonna boot it.
Close it. Move on.
I'm booting it. Anyway, Little Kitty Big City got ported as well as like a game, and my husband played that one, and I watched him play just a little bit of it, and he looked like he had fun. So, like, you know what? Screw it. And I hear very good things about that game.
They can have it.
Sure. I hear enough good things about that game that I have no doubt that it is of quality and is worth being considered one of the indie games of the year. I just can't speak to it personally. But that's okay to not have much to say. Content warning is on the Nintendo Switch these days, and could you imagine doing content warning through a controller mic? Because I can. And speakers? Because I can.
Oh, man.
It doesn't... Listen, I don't want to dog on anybody, but there is a reason that I have a microphone plugged into my computer and headphones on my head when I'm doing anything.
I've got a PS5 controller.
Ever. You shouldn't
For the last
do that.
5 minutes of the episode, I'm going to talk specifically through it. I'm not
vetoing
doing
this. I will pause the recording. I'm not ruining the show
I
for all
wouldn't
these
actually
people
do that
in the last 5 minutes. Jesus.
Because it is that bad.
But yeah, content warning, I don't mind getting a port. I mean, we were just talking about how little playtime we actually got out of content warning minute to minute. But I feel like we got an adequate amount of it to notice that, like, yeah. And a lot of our friends have a lot of fun with this game. So, like, clearly we're just either missing something or doing it wrong, or we're doing it right, but we do everything else wrong. And so the way that we do this right is only fun to people who don't do it wrong everywhere else. Was our general opinion, I think. Or was my general opinion, I think.
Yeah.
And then, like, content warning, that's fine. I think content warning is okay. I think I would have preferred a peak port, honestly, but, like, I get it.
Yeah.
I get why not. I get why we're not putting the game that we give regular updates to on Steam, like, almost daily, a console port yet. I completely get that.
Yeah.
So may as well go for the last one. And another Crab's Treasure, the last aggro crab game. I think the only aggro crab game they've ever made. I don't know that they've made anything else really, but like that's already on Switch. That got a Switch release not long ago. And another Crab's Treasure is really good. I'm just not good at Souls-likes, so I haven't made any progress on it whatsoever. I just ended up getting frustrated with it and was like, fuck it. I don't care. It plays really well. It's just the difficulty's too high for me, and I don't want to play a game where the difficulty is the point and play it on easy. So, like, I just refuse.
Yeah.
Like, that's my issue.
Yeah.
But that's another game they released. And then Ultimate Sheep Raccoon, which I know nothing about. I know nothing about this franchise. My husband enjoys Ultimate Chicken Horse. It's the sequel to Ultimate Chicken Horse.
Oh.
I just think the naming scheme sucks. I've had it explained to me and explained to me as far as like a mechanics in a video game goes. But like, and he's explained the same thing to you in the same room as me, actually. So like, yeah, no, I think it says a lot that neither of us can really intake it. That like, dude, I just can't understand Ultimate Chicken Horse and the point of it. And every time I have it explained to me, I go, oh, well, that doesn't seem like it would be enough fun to spend $20 on, you know?
Yeah.
But that's the list. That's the list. And do you have any comment about Ultimate Sheep Raccoon at all? Anything whatsoever to say about it?
I don't. I don't.
No, I'm shocked and appalled at your lack of comment.
I've not played Ultimate Chicken Horse. Mm-hmm.
And these are just the highlights. I haven't included the rest of the games on here because a lot of them are other like farming sims and indie games that neither of us I knew would have any knowledge of or comment about. And so I omitted those. But the list personally for me, that was the important headliners of this are UFO 50, Little Kitty Big City, Content Warning, and Ultimate Sheep Raccoon. I don't know that I hate that as a set of picks for a Nintendo console, necessarily, because as much as, like I said about Ultimate Chicken Horse, I think that game is great for, like, teenagers and younger on a Nintendo console. That's absolutely the perfect release for that kind of an audience. Absolutely, go for it. UFO 50 as well on a handheld is always a good call. Like, putting something like that on a handheld device will never be a bad idea, i.e. the Game Dingus segment we had for, like, half of the show. And then, like, where we talked about how cool and awesome that kind of thing is. And then, yeah, no, Content Warning, sure. That's a really weird pick, but, like, again, the latest game from Landfall isn't really... Well, is Haste on Switch yet? Because that's technically the latest Landfall game that isn't...
Haste has gotta be on Switch. Haste is the most this should be on Switch game I've ever seen.
Ever kind of game, yeah.
Let me see. No?
It's not on Switch?
Hold on.
Okay, yeah, then I second what I was already saying of, like, if Haste is not on Switch, they should have put Haste out on Switch and not Content Warning. I feel like Haste is the way better pick. But I feel like Content Warning from a Nintendo perspective or from Nintendo's current perspective, where they're pushing this, like, bootleg Discord built into the console and pushing their, like, friend integrations and their multiplayer invite integrations and shit. I feel like this is a good game for them right now. This is a good game to push those features, for sure. So I understand why it was chosen beyond it being one of the Landfall games available. But I think that adding Haste would overall be the better option of the two as far as multiplayer Landfall games go. And I've already spoken about how much I don't like the multiplayer in Haste. It feels very rushed. It feels very like the single player but multiplayer in a way that really only favors the player in front, honestly. Like, it favors the headstrong player that, like, leads the pack, and then the rest of you kind of just get to play the game. For whoever that happens to be at the given moment. And so nobody really gets a full experience with the co-op. But the co-op is sustainable, and the single player is fun enough that I would say that that is a must-have as far as, like, a Switch 2 indie release goes. Like, they gotta put that on Switch today. Dude, they ought to have that thing out already. Anyway, I think another thing that must happen is the show must end, as all things must do.
Entropy, like we were talking about.
Yeah, entropy and preservation. Maybe we should have made a better effort to preserve the length of this show a little longer. Should have made it 3 hours in year 2 and not 2. No. But either way, we're done with the show today, and yeah, it's been a really good one. I've had an awesome time, but I hope you had an awesome time as well. I hope you had as much fun watching it as we did making it. If you did, fucking interact with it in some way. You can interact with it via YouTube when it's live as a premiere at 3 p.m. on Sundays. New information to everybody here, I'm sure. And then the Spotify, it comes out on Spotify at the same time, 3 p.m. We have pre-shows on Patreon. We've yet to mention this week's pre-show. It was very heavily political. We made fun of the president for like half an hour. So if that's your jam, that's your jam. Go watch that. We also talked more about adult animation in the new season of South Park on our pre-shows the last couple weeks. So if you want a thing about King of the Hill, but it's about South Park instead and is a little more critical of the thing, go over there for that. You can find that on our Patreon. And then our card page has all of these things linked and more, including our social medias, also down below. So, hope you've enjoyed the episode. We've been Vox and Jed. We did fight about it. And we'll see you next week. Goodbye!
Bye-bye!